We all know Bobby Petrino loves to throw the football, but he needs a gunslinger to make it happen and may not have those choices at Louisville this year. We shall see with a couple of very young players who got their feet wet last year competing for the starting job, it appears, this fall. We've got Mike McDaniel of Inside the ACC to join us to help us break down the Cardinals coming off a 9-4 campaign after they lost quarterback Will Gardner, who had a decent sophomore season, Mike. So if you can kind of refresh us on Gardner's performance. Of course, he blew out the knee late, and the Cardinals had to scramble with a couple of freshmen.
Yeah, junior Will Gardner right now recovering from offseason knee surgery after blowing his leg out against Boston College. But last year he had a pretty decent sophomore season. He was 127 of 221 for almost 1,700 yards, had 12 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, and he was kind of leading the way for Louisville there through the start of the season. But he was splitting time with sophomore Reggie Bonnafon, who went 61 of 120 for last year, 864 yards, 5 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. Had some accuracy issues, but they were playing 2 quarterbacks there in Bobby Petrino's first year back at Louisville.
So Bonnafon was the choice at one point off the Gardner injury. He only completes 51% of his passes, and we know from watching college football these days that there are quarterbacks out there completing in the high 60s. So as a freshman, not a horrible showing. 5 touchdowns, 4 picks. Obviously gives you the dimension that Gardner does not in the running game with 5 rushing touchdowns. Bonnafon can provide that threat to the defense. So set us up for this year because you got Kyle Bolin, who stepped in those last 2 games against Kentucky and Georgia. The loss against Georgia, but the big win against Kentucky to finish things off in the regular season, put up some pretty big numbers.
Yeah, and you know what? You have to wonder if Bonnafon didn't have those accuracy issues against Notre Dame when he went 8 of 21 for 180 yards, a touchdown, a pick, if he would even give Kyle Bolin an opportunity. So Kyle Bolin, a fellow freshman there last year, ended the season 45 of 78 for 716 yards, had 4 touchdowns to 3 interceptions, just like Bonnafon, but he put up 381 yards in the season finale against Kentucky, and he put up 300 yards against Georgia in the bowl game. Obviously, they got blown out 37-14 in that Belk Bowl, but Kyle Bolin gave him that accuracy and showed that he could be a true pocket passer for him. So it's making Petrino's decision here leading into this past spring a little bit more difficult.
Well, Mike, even though Charlie Strong's a defensive guy, he had upped the recruiting considerably while he was still at Louisville, really raised the bar there. Bobby Petrino steps in. He's a guru of sorts at the quarterback spot. He's coached up guys in the past, loves the passing game. So I would be surprised with him having 2 freshmen on his hands from last season going into their sophomore seasons in which they should be progressing more than at practically any other stage of their careers, that he doesn't get much better production out of one of these guys now that they're fully entrenched in the offense, basically splitting reps with the other one. One of these guys, at least one of them, doesn't distinguish themselves this year as a decent ACC quarterback for a team that's probably going to win, again, 8 or 9 football games.
Yeah, and, in the spring, Reggie Bonnafon kind of unofficially had the number 1 spot just because they were, they saw the rushing ability with him versus Kyle Bolin, who just really not really much of a runner, more of a pocket passing guy. And Petrino would prefer to have his quarterback do a little bit of both. And that's why Bonnafon is so enticing if he can just increase his accuracy and just improve upon that. And all signs are that he was able to do so in the spring. And, don't forget about Will Gardner. As a junior last year, he played some good football there at the beginning of the season. And, was starting to split time with Bonnafon there because of the added ability of Bonnafon's legs. So now with Gardner, still rehabbing that knee, it doesn't look like he might, doesn't look like he's going to play a factor in this quarterback situation at all. And I wouldn't say it's Bonnafon's job to lose, but Petrino does like his quarterback to be able to run the ball, and he adds that dimension. So it looks like it's going to be him and Kyle Bolin. There was a junior transfer, Ferguson, out of Penn State. Didn't play much there for the Nittany Lions, transferred to Louisville, and he was also in contention for that quarterback spot coming out of spring. But all indications are if Bonnafon improves his accuracy like he did this past spring and he continues to look good in summer workouts, it looks like he's the guy to beat.
And Louisville fans can look forward to Tylin Oden, who is the 18th ranked dual threat quarterback, according to ESPN, out of Tennessee. This past recruiting class is possibly throwing his hat in the ring down the line, most likely starting in 2016. And, of course, note Devontae Parker to pluck footballs out of the air and bail out quarterbacks like was the luxury with Will Gardner in particular last season. Devontae Parker, first-round pick in the NFL. Mike McDaniel joining us from inside the ACC to help us break down teams across the board in the conference specifically. We're talking quarterbacks these days, and Mike's helping us out. All right, Mike, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks.